Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, it's a one-of-a-kind 3D experience you can't buy anywhere else. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and joining me as always is my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. Patrick, I was not able to buy the type of bread that I normally buy from the grocery store.
What is the kind of bread you normally buy?
Normally, I'm just 100% whole wheat, no problem. But they didn't have what I wanted, so instead I opted for 21 grains and nuts.
No, you have to err on the side of less healthy.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good call, Patrick. Like, there are apparently 20 of these grains and nuts that I can abide, but the 21st is pumpkin seeds. And I will not do it. It's too much seed in my bread.
I'm sorry if I'm putting you on blast a little bit here, but don't you have a nut allergy?
I have a tree nut allergy. That is true. Yes.
I see, yes.
Seeds are fine.
But it's
seeds I can handle.
Seeds and nuts, right? It's nuts. There are nuts in the bread.
Yeah, I mean, no. It's grains and seeds.
Grains and seeds. Okay.
Yeah.
No nuts.
No nuts.
Okay.
No nuts. Yeah.
No, so we Sarah and I are also generally a whole wheat bread, but if we have to get something different from what we normally get, you always go like a shade less healthy, and that's fine. Because if you go a shade healthier, it's that's a slippery slope to eating cardboard, Mark.
Oh yeah, no, it's true. It's a fine balance. I thought that I could handle going full grains and nuts, and I just can't do it. When I'm slathering on that peanut butter, I just don't need pumpkin seeds. I just don't need it.
You just don't need it. And Mark, I relate to that so very hard. I guess this is really just for when you are making like an aberration from your normal bread purchases. If there are people who are like defaulting to the healthier bread, I say all the more power to you. You're making the right choice.
But I think I think your rule still holds, where even if you're defaulting to the healthier bread, if they don't have your normal healthy bread of choice, don't go healthier.
Bread.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right.
At that point, you go to like 100% whole grain, like what I'm eating.
Right. You found your ceiling for as healthy a bread as you can eat. Do not go beyond that ceiling.
Yes.
Speaking of ceilings you should not go beyond, my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. Would you like to borrow it? You can. Or you can try. All you gotta do is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. And give us a mailing address so we can send you my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. You play it for as long as you want. You send it back. I have paid for postage both ways. Normally I say that I pay for postage both ways. By the time it's in your hand, I've already paid for postage both ways. You don't even need to worry about where that postage comes from because I've already taken care of it. There may be a copy of Untitled Goose Game in there. The same rules apply.
For as many times as we've talked about the Sonic Forces borrowing program, a perfect program on every episode of this show for many, many years now.
Just every single one.
I like that there are still nuances and questions to be answered, because it would not surprise me if there was a listener out there being like, how does the postage, Patrick paying for the postage, work? Does he send me the game, and then when I'm ready for it to be sent back, he then sends the postage? So I think that was a very helpful and important clarification.
Right. Well, in the early days, I would call the person's post office and say, I'm going to mail you $12. And if that's enough postage to get it back to me, and they would take my word for it. And so it was a long, laborious process. And now I just pack 2 envelopes, baby. 1 envelope with return postage, 1 envelope with their postage. It's the perfect borrowing program.
Well, here's another thing that you or your local postmaster could do. You could leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere that you get your podcast. Patrick and I enjoy reading your reviews so much. It really helps people find the show. It's a great way to spread the word about the Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you leave us a 5-star review on the US Apple Podcast Store, we can see it and we'll give you a shout out on the show. If you leave us a review anywhere else, it's much harder for us to see it. Some places like Spotify don't even include, like usernames or anything like that. But we still want to give you a shout out and thank you for leaving us a review. So hit us up on Twitter, send us an email, let us know so we can thank you and give you a shout out on the show for your review.
For us, the reviews are all about our ability to shout out the people leaving them for us. Also discoverability, and it feeds our egos. So, please do it. Also, get on our Discord. We welcomed a new user to the Discord earlier today. So welcome, Nintendian. It's great. It's great to have you. It's great to have everyone in there. If you want to get in our Discord, either email us, hit us up on Twitter. We would love to send you an invite so you can come on in and just talk about fun, chill Nintendo stuff. Everyone is very nice and fun and funny. Mark, the Discord is funny. People in the Discord are funny. They're telling good jokes about Nintendo stuff.
Yeah, it's been a real delight. And I just know that whenever we have not had the Discord and had it have a Nintendo Direct happen, and I cannot wait for the convergence of those two things.
Yeah, it'll be a great thing. It'll be popping off in the Discord is what it'll be. Mark, speaking of Nintendo Direct, let's get to our topic. We're discussing classic Nintendo Directs, specifically the first and second ever Nintendo Directs. Mark, I'm not sure I have the date here right for the first one, but it's October sometime in 2011.
October 21st, 2011.
October 21st.
Yeah.
That is what I wrote down, but I was not confident that I had the date right. Short.
Yeah, so 7 minutes and 30 seconds long.
Yes.
Hosted by Reggie Fils-Aimé. It was kind of wild going back and watching this. One, I don't know that I had ever seen this before because
same.
In 2011, I still had a Wii, but was not really playing it very much. I was playing a lot of PlayStation 3. I didn't own a 3DS yet, and I'm pretty sure I had sold my last Nintendo DS. And so I was aware of what was happening in Nintendo world, but I wasn't super clued in. Although, honestly, I don't know that anybody cared about these at all.
This is right, yes.
Because
because they didn't exist before this. I mean,
The video in total on Nintendo's official channel has 203,000 views. That's it.
And this is a video that's been up since October 21st, 2011.
Yeah.
Right? It's been there for 11 years.
Yeah, it was very strange to go back and watch this. Just very, very weird.
And I think the sort of home base for that strangeness is that it's being hosted by Reggie Fils-Aimé with no graphics package. He's in a white studio space. It is other than Reggie's personality, the video has no personality.
Yeah, his chin is so shiny.
Is that a euphemism, Mark? I've never heard that before.
No, I mean he needed somebody to powder him. He needed some powder to control the shine.
I mean, we'll get to makeup difficulties in the in the second direct because Bill Trinen looks like a mess in that one. But yeah, I mean, it seems like they had zero budget for this, and because it is so driven by Reggie, right? It's all him. It makes me think that is Reggie effectively the inventor of the Nintendo Direct? Would they exist today without him doing this?
Yeah, I am really curious what the genesis of this is because, of course in for now Nintendo Directs are such big deals, but in 2011 Nintendo was still doing in-person presentations and conferences for all of their big announcements. So this is, is a kind of just a supplementary, thing that they're just putting out there, clearly just doing it to see if it takes, and the fact that it eventually builds to what we know Nintendo Directs as today is pretty wild.
And it's also so unpolished. Like one of the early things that Reggie says is, he's like, "This is going to be great news for 3DS and Wii owners. And if you're not a 3DS owner, what's wrong with you?" He says, "What's wrong with you?"
That's one of those Reggie-isms that
Yes.
I had seen GIFs from for years and years and years, and never knew where it came from. And now I know from the first Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, and this thing is a wild ride. Like Mark said, it's only 7.5 minutes long, and they don't mention the first game until 3 minutes and 42 seconds into it.
Well, also, like, Nintendo was in such a weird place.
Weird place.
Because the 3DS had launched March of 2011 and bombed, and so there was
Yeah.
the price cut in July, and in this presentation they talk about the games that are coming in the holiday season in the next few months, and they are some of the big ones like Super Mario Land, Mario Kart 7, but you're kind of like, what was out on this platform at this point?
Yeah. I mean, kind of nothing. The first thing that Reggie brings up as like, here's what we're going to talk about as like a selling point for this system is Hulu Plus.
Yeah, so you have like the 3DS, which had just launched and was on really wobbly legs, and then
Right, yes.
then the Wii still exists at this point. Like the Wii U has not even been announced, and so they talk about Skyward Sword being the big release for November of 2011. It was just very, very strange.
Well, and like if you want to, recall the sort of like a death spiral of the Wii, it's sort of marked by Skyward Sword, right? Like a game that with the benefit of time, we can, actually appreciate, and especially with its re-release on Switch as like a pretty good Zelda game. Like it had been so long since there was like a meaty Nintendo release on the Wii, and like virtually nothing came to the Wii after this. So like this was just the desert. We were just wandering in the desert, and there was no content on the Wii. So like that's where a desperate new place for the 3DS and like a dying place for the Wii is where Reggie's like, all right, I'm just gonna get out and talk to the people.
Did watching this make your blood run a little cold though? Just did you feel like, there was a moment where I felt a little desperation, where I was like, uh-oh, is this what we're going to have to talk about on this show the next time Nintendo hits a rough patch?
I know. Well, because like it's gonna happen again, right? Like the way Nintendo like ebbs and flows. The Wii was the biggest thing. They had the Wii and the DS at the same time, and they were hitting. They were huge, and like Nintendo's hitting and huge right now because of the Switch. But like these things come in waves. So like, will we ever go back to a day where it's just like Doug Bowser in front of a camera being like, please buy Dylan's Dead Heat Breakers or whatever. Like, it's grim. It is grim stuff.
It is grim. It's being on the other side of it, and being in the Switch. I can laugh at this a little bit, but it also it feels a little bit like it's only a matter of time until we're back here.
I know. But luckily, there's such a big like classic library of Nintendo games that we won't be able to play because all the eShops have been shut down.
That's right.
That we can continue to talk about those things. After really giving the hard sell on Hulu Plus coming to both the Wii and the 3DS. Oh, go ahead.
Right before he talks about the about Hulu Plus coming to the Wii and the 3DS. Reggie gives a hard sell on the 3DS a little bit, and still got to convince people the 3DS had not really taken off. So he says, of course, the 3DS has a ton of games, but the other features are video, photos, AR games, movie trailers, and Street Pass Mii Plaza, all in 3D.
Yeah, well, and this is part of a 3DS system update as well. The 3D videos are part of a 3DS system update that was not out yet. So they're still adding like basic boring functionality to the 3DS that, I mean, Mark, I've owned a 3DS probably for a decade now. I've never once made a 3D video. Did you know you can make stop motion 3D videos?
No.
Up to 10 minutes long?
I never used any of this stuff.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, I messed around with like some of the Me Plaza stuff, but like he said that there were like new puzzles coming to Me Plaza. Like, what? What? It was the early days of this thing were dire.
Yeah, it was thin gruel for sure.
So thin, in fact, that a version of the Michael Jackson Thriller video featuring Shrek characters is like the first title mentioned by name.
I could
in this
not
presentation.
I could not handle this. I had to stop and like walk around the room before starting again because I had no memory of this or any of this like video initiative that they're talking about. And so Reggie teased it up. He had just talked about they're adding 3D video recording to the 3DS in the November system update. And he smoothly goes into the next part being like, you don't have to create your own 3D video. We're providing a lot of content for you.
A lot of content.
Many Nintendo 3DS owners are already familiar with features from DreamWorks Animation. And now a landmark production is on the way. It's the Thriller song that you know and love, featuring DreamWorks Animation's Shrek characters. It's a one-of-a-kind 3D experience you can't buy anywhere else. And that's where I paused and went for a little walk to get myself together again.
I mean, you sort of just need to, like, re-center yourself in reality. Because, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I get all those words in isolation, but stringing them together it's madness.
And it feels so desperate because it's like clearly the initiative, clearly like the word from Nintendo corporate was like video is a big like and is part of 3DS, and so go out there and get like exclusive video content that people can only watch in 3D on their Nintendo 3DS, and the scraps that they came back with.
Just absolute scraps. Well, and like this is 2011, okay? The original Shrek came out in 2001. Shrek 2 came out in 2004. Shrek the Third came out in 2007. And Shrek Forever After, a movie I love, came out in 2010. So this is even after that. This is like after the Shrek franchise had like crested and fallen and like had a little bit of a resurgence and go away again. And they're like, here we've got Thriller, but it's Shrek.
I did immediately went to my 3DS to see if I could still purchase this.
And
as far as I can tell, all video content is like wiped from the Nintendo 3DS eShop. I don't think you can buy anything anywhere. You can't even search for video. Like when you go to the eShop search function, it's only for games. It even says on the top screen in parenthetical, you cannot search for video.
Okay, so I'm looking on the Shrek franchise wiki right now to see if we can find like a place where the Thriller video with Shrek characters is available. So it's not listed in films, it's not listed in television series, not television specials, not theatrical presentations.
Is there like a Halloween special? Because I looked for Thriller Shrek on YouTube and I was able to find something that kind of matches the screenshots that they showed that I think was released as like a DVD bonus feature or something like that.
Yeah, I cannot tell. Yeah, no, I don't know. I cannot see anything in there's a television special, Shrek the Halls and Scared Shrekless. Maybe that's it.
Maybe it's in Scared Shrekless.
Maybe it's in Scared Shrekless. That came out in 2010, so like it about lines up.
But yeah, so Thriller with the Shrek characters in 3D, as far as we can tell, can't buy it on the 3DS eShop. Similarly,
maybe doesn't exist. Isn't that the amazing thing?
The next thing that Reggie says
Oh my
is
God.
the catalog. Yeah, if the Shrek thing wasn't weird enough, the next thing is the catalog of music videos from real life performers will also grow with a 3D version of Don't Stop from Foster the People.
End of list of videos. So you got the Shrek cast doing Thriller, and you got Foster the People doing Don't Stop.
Oh my gosh, what a grab bag of 3D content from Nintendo.
And it is only at this point, again, 3 minutes and 42 seconds into the Nintendo Direct, which in total is less than twice that length, right? It's 7 minutes. I guess it's about halfway through.
Yeah.
That Reggie says mostly 3DS is about games, and then the first game that they announce, or that I was unable to tell if any of these were announcements or just talking about things that have already been out there in the ether, is a game called Freaky Forms.
Yeah.
Mark, did you know anything about this game?
No, I had never heard about this game. It looks like you can create creatures or just like objects using pieces, and you put them together. I feel like the one that they have in the trailer is kind of like a horse with wheels, kind of like a toy horse type thing.
Yeah, it struck me as Scribblenauts, but without the gimmick of writing the words.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, you're just pulling the pieces together. But yeah, a game that I had not heard of.
No,
Freaky Forms.
But yeah, one of the 4 great downloadable titles shown off in this first Nintendo Direct. And the next one was Pushmo, a game I've never played, but which I have heard of and does have a good reputation.
Yeah, and Pushmo is a genuinely good, mostly puzzle, slightly platform sort of game, and especially benefits from the 3D technology because it's all about moving platforms so that you can get up to different levels. So moving the blocks one forward, seeing that represented in 3D is genuinely helpful for the gameplay. Pushmo to my eye here is the only genuine game amongst the 4 that they're starting off with here.
Well, what about Dylan's Rolling Western, which is the next one, a game I haven't played?
Yeah, well, I haven't played that one either. I've played a fair amount of Dylan's Dead Heat Racers, which is what I did say earlier in the episode because it's the only Dylan game that I know. It's so odd to me because the Dylan games they're a series, right? And is this where they start?
It is,
yes,
yeah.
This is the first one? Okay.
Yep.
Because they're starring an armadillo,
Yeah.
they're leaning into the fact that it's weird. And having only played Dead Heat Racers, the most recent entry in the series, it's alarming to see footage from the original game, which is so simple and so blocky and looks, even though it's the same platform, it's on the same hardware. It just looks so bad.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not in this Direct, but in the one we'll talk about right after this, they show off Kid Icarus Uprising, and it is crazy. That game released just March of the next year of 2012, and it is wild the disparity in graphical prowess between the games that are shown.
Yeah, totally. And then the last of these 4 downloadable games they show off is Swap Note, which Mark, were you ever able to mess around with Swap Note?
No, I did. I know it only by reputation.
Yeah, same. Swap Note was a messaging app in the 3DS, sort of riding because there was also messaging in on the original DS, right?
Right.
But that was more of a baked into the right. Was it baked into the hardware?
Yeah, it was.
I don't remember downloading something extra to do it.
I don't know how you would have on the original DS.
Hey, what a great point. But yeah, I mean, a wholly underwhelming quartet of games to lead off a presentation saying that mostly the 3DS is about games.
But then they kind of kick into gear and talk about some of the heavier hitters that are releasing that year. Reggie announces. Reggie does a lot of weird. It's not really gatekeeping, but just kind of with 3DS owners are the best people in the world and up atop. And then and if you're not a 3DS owner, what's wrong with you? And then when he talks about Pokemon Rumble Blast, he's like, true Pokemon fans know that Pokemon Rumble Blast hits stores next Monday, October 24th.
Which like there's no one who's a fan of Pokemon Rumble Blast. Like, it's not really a Pokemon game. It has the characters, but like it's crap. And then the other two games that they show off sort of like in this run here are Super Mario 3D Land, which again, this isn't like the reveal of the game. Was maybe revealed at the E3 presentation in that summer.
Yeah, it could have been.
And then Mario Kart 7, which is one of the great Mario Karts. And is like the one time that another Nintendo personality like kind of gets in on it, because Reggie is teasing and Iwata asks about Mario Kart 7 and sort of like the design philosophy there. And I was hit with a pang of nostalgia and just of missing Satoru Iwata, because what a great presence that dude was. Yeah, his death was a major loss for like the industry and humanity.
Yeah, totally. And just a reminder of like how present he was during this era for Nintendo, like really front and center. But as far as games go for the Nintendo 3DS, that is a pretty solid end of 2011. You get Super Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7. Not shabby.
Yeah, that's true. Those are they're both really good games. And then the presentation ends with like, oh, I guess we'll go over to the Wii now. We haven't really talked about the Wii at all. And the only thing they have to discuss is Skyward Sword coming out that September.
Or
and
November.
November, sorry. And the like Zelda concert happening at the Pantages in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I wasn't living in Los Angeles at this point, or
neither
that
was
would have been
I.
awesome. My favorite thing is how Reggie closes this, because we've talked about great moments in copywriting on this show before, and this is truly peak copywriting, where basically nothing that he says he could possibly believe to be true, but he has to say it anyways. This is how he closes. Nintendo's delivered holiday fun for over 25 years in America. Fair. That's where the truth ends. He concludes by saying, but no previous year has ever matched this one for the breadth and depth of the entertainment that awaits you.
He can't possibly believe it. Mark, I'm sorry, you saying breadth and depth right now just reminds me that we're at work, we're hiring for a position right now, and so I'm like I'm screening cover letters, and one of the cover letters I was reading said is one of those sentences, just like a statement of purpose, thing where it's like, my experience and creativity and blah, 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 blah. But instead of saying like my wealth of creativity or my breadth of experience or whatever, it said the girth of my creativity and experience.
Huh.
And I have never seen the word girth in a cover letter before.
That is a spectacular word choice.
It's a spectacular word choice.
Definitely attention grabbing, for sure.
Attention grabbing, but let me tell you, we moved him into the reject file right away.
Thesaurus use gone wrong, it feels like.
It does seem like that's probably what was happening there. The sentence also ended with like, we'll meld keenly with your company to create a more perfect world or something like that. Like it was all nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow girth wasn't the worst part of that sentence. Mark, my last note here about the first of these two directs, it just says wow, all lowercase letters. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it at the top of the show, but it's hard to overstate how strange it is to go from these Nintendo Directs to, thinking about the Nintendo Direct that we are eagerly anticipating. Like there's such different beasts. Like they're basically just completely different ideas.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's bizarre that we expect anything from them. Like, knowing that this is where they came from, like, it doesn't seem like they have the weight to hold any announcement of any kind.
Yeah. The second one, which we're going to move into, which aired February 22nd, 2012. And this one's a little bit longer. It's about 12 minutes long. They switch it up a little bit. Reggie's there to tee it up and to close it out, but otherwise it's basically the Bill Trinan show.
Yeah, well, and like the other notable difference, both with the Bill segments and the Reggie segments, is that he is clearly in a physical space, right?
That's
Like,
right.
well, the original one is like in a white backdrop, and they're like, no, Reggie's not anywhere. He's just a talking head. Like he's clearly at Nintendo of America, right? And with Bill Trinan, he spends a lot of time interviewing Nintendo Treehouse employees, and they're just like sitting like in chairs, clearly like at Nintendo.
Yeah, and Bill Trinan, he begins his thing being like, "I'm here outside, like the entry to the Nintendo Treehouse,
Right.
But we can't go in. But we're gonna talk to some people a little bit later." But then he spends a lot of like the B-roll when he's talking about things before the interviews, when he's talking about different, like games or announcements, and when they're cross-cutting between him and B-roll, they have Bill Trinan like walking down a hallway. It's just very.
Yeah.
They're still figuring stuff out.
They are still figuring stuff out. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but Bill Trinan's makeup here is a disaster. Like, I don't know if he did it himself or what, but like, he is not camera ready at this point. I don't know what they were doing.
No.
I don't know what they were doing.
I mean, maybe he was, like the best choice, but he kind of reminded me of like a not camera ready Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, sure. Like when they ambush him at home for like a bit for
Yeah.
for the show.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's because he's pale as all get out, right? Like, it's look we are now a body positive show, so I don't want to rag on Trinan too much, but it is definitely a place where like either the makeup or the lighting were just letting him down. Like it was not a fair situation for him.
He also has like I thought like a interesting energy where like the way he delivers some of the lines seems like he's like a little angry to be there, to be doing it.
Could be that he's a little angry.
Yeah.
So I think I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but my read on this one was that the thrust of at least the beginning of it was that they were going to be talking about like again about 3DS, but about 3DS and multiplayer. That like that's something that they were pushing as like with both Kid Icarus Uprising coming out in March and Mario Tennis Open, both being like multiplayer. Either games focus on multiplayer or that have a strong multiplayer component to them. That like that's the foot that they're putting forward here.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like the format of this Nintendo Direct is, Bill Trinan gives a little bit up top. He talks about like the as he's like walking down the hallways of Nintendo of America, talks about the eShop and how it's been on a roll. And so he, like lists a few games and talks about each one. Like Pushmo, he brings up that Freaky Forms, Your Creations, a live game from the previous Direct. He talks about Mutant Muds, gives a shout out to Sakura Samurai, Art of the Sword, Swap Note, Dylan's Rolling Western, and then which was a stealth drop, maybe the first in a Nintendo. Well, I guess actually definitely a first
would
in a
have to be,
Nintendo
yeah.
Direct.
Wow, available right now. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And then so after that little bit, the format changes to like an interview show, basically.
Yeah. Very strange too, right? That like suddenly he's just there doing an interview with John from Treehouse. And so this is just like a guy who's working on the localization of Kid Icarus Uprising. And it's not like to my mind and to my eyes. And again, this is 11 years later. So, who knows? Or I guess 10 years later. I don't know. Like, this is not John from Treehouse is not a known entity, right? Like,
No.
this is not. This is not. When we were like familiar with the personalities of these people at all, and John does not appear to be like media trained in any way, shape, or form, right?
No, all of this is very like raw, which isn't it's not like he does a bad job or anything, but it is not like the polished presentation that we expect. From even like a Treehouse Live.
Yeah, yeah. And so they spend a lot of time talking about the light versus dark like multiplayer mode in Kid Icarus Uprising. And I stopped taking notes here because it's just so chatty. Like, it's just two guys having a conversation for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, I don't feel like it does, and probably why they, dropped these sort of like interview segments. I just don't think it does a very good job of selling the game or what's like exciting about the game.
Yeah, well, and it's also a strange choice to like. I'm sure there's something interesting there, but like, you're interviewing one of the dudes on the localization team, right? Like, it's not as though you're like interviewing a game designer about like game design philosophy or like an artist about like art design. And I guess like a localizer has a lot of experience with the game and can speak about it in English, which is, I'm sure, why this is who he was interviewing. But it's weird. Like, the guy doesn't have some sort of like super valuable insight. Like when in the lead up to Metroid Dread, right, they had a bunch of interviews in video and in text form with Mark, help me out. What's the dude's name? The Metroid guy who was having a banner year last year because
Because Famicom Detective Club. Yeah, Sakamoto.
Yeah, there we go. Sakamoto was being interviewed left and right and was able to like give valuable insight about like the project and its development and all this kind of stuff. And John from Treehouse can just like basically review it internally. It's so strange.
Well, I did learn that John from Treehouse is a stand guy. Bill asks him, how do you hold the game? That was a question from Bill. And John says that he's a stand guy and reminds us that a stand was packed with every copy of Kid Icarus Uprising.
Which, again, this game is coming out just about 1 year after the release of the 3DS. It is not great that they have to sell an accessory so that you can physically hold the console to play it.
Yeah, still rough days for the Nintendo 3DS for sure.
Yeah. Also, this was something that I was not aware of, that in the run-up to Kid Icarus Uprising, if you pre-ordered it, you got a free code for the 3D Classics version of NES Kid Icarus.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. At this point, I didn't own a 3DS.
Yeah, same. And that's like the way to play Kid Icarus. Like, that's the best way.
Totally. And you can go back to our Kid Icarus month episodes where we talked about the original Kid Icarus and I played the 3D Classics version for that episode, and it's worth checking out.
Yep. Even if you don't get it for free as part of your Kid Icarus Uprising pre-order. And next they move on to Mario Tennis Open. And this is it's not John anymore. I didn't catch this guy's name.
It's Eric.
Eric. And this is a boring conversation to me, Marco. Did you have any takeaways from this one?
No, I think it's another reason why they eventually moved away from these talking head interviews and, more to just like footage of the game with voiceover, because you don't really learn anything valuable and it doesn't do a good job of selling you on the fun of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about like using the gyro controls for like a first-person view of the court, and it's like, okay.
And then they don't show you, like
they don't show it. Yeah,
you don't see that. Like it's not illustrated for you. It's just two 30-something white dudes talking about a Mario Tennis game. Which, if you wanted that, you would just listen to this podcast.
You would just listen to this podcast. We're already doing it. 10 years later. At one point, the Treehouse guy, Eric, says they're talking about like that you can play multiplayer locally, but online is where it's at.
Nintendo gets it.
Yeah, they're cool. Online is where it's at. I can't imagine that that's actually true. the thing that was remarkable to me and is like really just a symptom of like how lumpy and boring the segment is that it ends with the two gentlemen saying it was really good talking to you. like like the pleasantries are kept in this thing.
Couldn't cut out that.
They don't have anything to say to each other. It's outrageous.
It's wild.
Okay, and then are we done with this little interview section here, and then we can bounce back to Reggie?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. We're back to Reggie, who is here to reveal the results of the Facebook vote for art to be included in Xenoblade Chronicles. So
Okay, hold on. We have to stop here though, because Xenoblade Chronicles, this is now the first game in the series, had been out in Europe for like a year, had not yet been brought to the States, and already they were soliciting fan art.
No.
Well,
They
was it-
were
okay, go.
They included in the packaging for Xenoblade Chronicles was art that you could like replace the art in the slipcase with. So it was like
Sure,
special
okay.
art, and it was not fan art. It was there were like I'm not sure how many choices, but like 3 or 4 officially commissioned by Nintendo pieces of art that the fans could vote on Facebook for which one they wanted included.
Okay. Wow. What like an arbitrary promotion? Like just put all 4 of them, Nintendo. Double sided. You only had to make like 2 pieces of paper.
Well, the one that got chosen is pretty nice. It's Reggie's too. I thought it was pretty cool looking.
Yeah, Reggie's favorite. Yeah, he said that it was his favorite. Weird to see especially as we are, just in the afterglow of the glorious pre-order of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, in the afterglow of that situation, to see a strange poll about including extra art in the physical release of Xenoblade Chronicles.
Also interesting to kind of have this inglorious release in the United States of the first Xenoblade Chronicles game. Crazy how that franchise has turned around with time, and we are now about to get a third entry in a series that Nintendo was like really, really hesitant to release in the United States.
Yeah, well, and like, yeah, you say inglorious, and like it is sort of, but partially because everything in this is inglorious. But like they show footage from the game, right? Like they have B-roll from it, and Reggie is saying like if you like huge open worlds and like epic stories and whatever, like he is talking it up, and like really giving the sell to the American audience. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's something that like he actually believed in or was just doing a good job being a pitch man in this moment. But there was a second where I was like, oh, maybe the original Xenoblade's pretty good.
You mean the game that you bought the remastered version and couldn't get into?
Okay. Look, did I also buy it on 3DS? There's no way to know.
I think this, after Xenoblade Chronicles, Reggie says that they have one last announcement, and I think that this might be the first
One
game
more thing?
announcement
Yeah.
or game announcement in general from a Nintendo Direct. Reggie announces that the last story is releasing sometime in 2012 from our publishing partner Xseed Games. Nintendo couldn't even be bothered to publish this one themselves.
Yeah, very strange that he's like championing it as like from the original Final Fantasy designers, and it says that it's one of the greatest JRPGs out there, and then that our publishing partners at Xseed are putting it out.
I think that this was one of the Project Rainfall games. Project Rainfall was like a fan initiative around this time because there were games like The Last Story, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Pandora's Tower that Nintendo had released in other regions like Japan and Europe, but never released in, or were like seemingly had no plans to release in America. And so fans started this campaign that was called Project Rainfall. I can't remember the genesis of the name, but basically its goal was to like pressure Nintendo into releasing these games because there was a lot of feeling in the fan community that why was Nintendo not releasing these games when the Wii had nothing else right now?
Right. Well, and just especially considering, I think the narrative there is like so clear, right? That these are all like hardcore, quote unquote, like gamer games, long JRPGs, and the Wii was not really built for that sort of thing, and certainly wasn't marketed for that sort of thing. So like I think it was just Nintendo and Nintendo of America staying on message, and the fan community demanding a different message. And even if Project Rainfall did mean that these games came over to the Wii, it ultimately never like changed the trajectory of that system, which was so close to its end at that point anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And I also think that it was just software wasn't really selling on the Wii at this point. Like, the market had dropped out basically by this point. And
Yeah.
so, the cost to bring it over and doing new localizations for these text heavy RPGs, I'm sure was not
Totally.
high on Nintendo's agenda.
And then even though this was like the one more thing, or like the big announcement, there were still a couple 3DS things, maybe 3DS and Wii U, or and Wii.
Yeah, I think it was mostly just like a shout out to 3DS games that had come out recently or were available, because it was Resident Evil Revelations, Mario and Sonic at the 2012 Olympic Games, which I guess had a Wii version, Tekken 3D Prime Edition, Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater 3D, and then Spirit Camera: The Cursed Memoir.
Yeah, and only a couple seconds on each game here. I don't know. Did any of that? Did you have any kind of reaction to any of that, or any like light of recognition of like, oh, hey, this is when that game came out? Or
No, not really. It was just kind of like a stark reminder of where Nintendo was at this point, where they were trying to transition from the DS to the 3DS, and that was rocky. The Wii was on its last legs, and the Wii U hadn't been announced yet. It was just a really strange time.
As we were approaching the end of the 3DS eShop, we did an episode about like all the games that we're losing when it goes away. And I don't remember if we talked about Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater 3D at the time or not. But the simple fact of the matter is that even when we learned that the 3DS eShop was closing down, Metal Gear Solid 3 had already been taken off of digital storefronts because the rights to some of the historical footage used in the game had expired, and so Konami could no longer sell it on digital storefronts, which means like that is truly a game that by the time that they announced you're not gonna be able to buy games anymore, had already been gone. So like there's no way that they're gonna spend a dime to put Snake Eater 3D back on the 3DS eShop. That version of that game is lost. It is lost to time.
I totally forgot about the footage licensing piece of it. Man, it makes me wish that I would have bought that game just purely as like the historical curiosity that it is.
Yeah. I mean, it was sold physically, so maybe it exists physically somewhere.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about any of the rest of these games? Resident Evil Revelations, Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. What was the one after that?
Tekken. 3D
Tekken
Prime Edition. Yeah.
Did you see that Tekken 2 on the PlayStation Store is priced at $10,000 right now?
No, worth every penny.
Worth every penny. And then Spirit Camera: The Cursed Memoir. I don't even know what that is.
So it's I don't know if it's considered a spin-off or like a spiritual sister series. Of Fatal Frame. And it uses AR in some way. I've never played it. So I can't speak to like exactly how it plays, but it's related to the Fatal Frame series.
And then that's the end of this presentation. Mark, did you like this one better or worse than the first one?
I liked it better. I thought that the production of it was better. They were like definitely learning, figuring it out still, but neither of them made me excited to go back to 2011, 2012 Nintendo
Right.
times.
Mark, would it surprise you to learn that used copies of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater 3D for the 3DS, physical copies, the floor for them is $125,
Wow.
and it only goes up from there.
But Patrick, one way to look at it is if you buy it right now for $125, that's the cheapest it's ever going to be.
It's like crypto; it just keeps going up and up. Okay, well, Mark, so we did this because we were sort of counting on the fact that there was going to be a new Nintendo Direct, and Nintendo tricked us, or I don't know if they tricked us. They didn't give us what we wanted. And so we took a little trip down memory lane. Was this a satisfying trip down memory lane for you?
I had fun. Again, I don't know that I had ever watched these presentations before, and it was interesting to see the Nintendo Direct's humble beginnings.
Yeah, well, and also, like, I know he was in a bunch of them, but it is nice to have them anchored by Reggie Fils-Aimé, right? Like, we've talked a lot of smack about him in recent weeks around his book tour and just being the sort of, like, a nakedly commercial endeavor. But, like, I don't know, there's something about the way he just, like, commanded a camera when it's just him and the camera in the room to, harangue you for why aren't you already a 3DS owner?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Do you think there will ever come a day where we get back to just like an individual person telling us about games, or have we gone into the future now and there's no looking back?
Oh man, I'll never say never. I could. Who knows what the future will hold, and Nintendo might get to the point where it is just a single person with a camera, and that's all they can muster at the moment.
Yeah, in a bunker somewhere. All right, Mark, let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you would be so kind as to rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, we would greatly appreciate it. If you like the episode, you should share it on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you share stuff. That's how people find the show, is when you recommend it to them. So thank you for doing that, everyone. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell. The show is at Nin Cart Society. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying we'll get a new Nintendo Direct someday. Thank you for listening.